Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of The Art of Volunteering. I'm your host, Stormy Bell. Today, I have two friends with me today with a that's a little different because it involves canines, and I think you're really going to find value in what they do and why they do it. So, welcome, Keith and Marnie. I'm so glad that you could be on the episode today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Pennsylvania Wilderness Search and Rescue was formed in 2009 and is a 501(c) nonprofit organization. They train and provide highly skilled search professionals and canines in order to help search for and find missing loved ones. I love that. Keith is the deputy chief and president of PA Wilderness Search and Rescue, and he's active at all levels of the organization. He has been a canine handler for 10 years, starting with his first dog, Nakoma, a scent-specific trailing dog detection. He has a second dog, but he didn't work out for search and rescue, and now he's on his third canine, who is a single-purpose human remains detection dog in training. Marnie Powell is involved in volunteer search and rescue for 23 years. She is a founding member of Pennsylvania Wilderness Search and Rescue, and she serves as canine captain to help train canines and find lost people in order to bring families their loved ones. Marnie currently is training her 7th canine for search and rescue. She is also trained in field and medical skills to help wherever she can during a search incident. She believes that even though they are volunteers, the dedication to training and searching is the most important thing that they can provide to a community. They volunteer their time and they train their personnel and canines to a high level of proficiency. That's a lot, and that's so cool. So, thank you again for being my guest. Your mission is unique. Who would like to go first to share about it? What was the catalyst for this created? What was the impact? Marnie, I'll go with you since you've been with it 23 years.
So the team was formed in 2009. Obviously, I've been involved a lot longer than that. There are several teams in the state of Pennsylvania where we are from, but we started the team to get a more professional quality search personnel out there to the community so that we could help find lost people. We have search management, we have search personnel, we have canines, we have medical personnel. There are a lot of canine teams out there that only specifically focus on canines, but we wanted to have an all-encompassing search team to be able to better provide that service to the community.
With that, what does it look like? Like, what does like a canine team look like? What's like when they're in the field? What are they doing?
Specifically for the canine teams, we do have 3 different disciplines. So we have scent-specific trailing dogs. We have area search dogs, which are both live find and cadaver. So depending on who is missing and the situation that we are called for, we may utilize a scent-specific trailing dog in order to find a direction of travel, where the person left, if we have a specific last known point with their scent article. If we don't have that and they've been missing a little bit longer, we may use a live find area search dog. And obviously, if it goes into several days or weeks, then we may be switching over to a recovery situation where we may be using cadaver dogs. We always go out with our ground support personnel, again, highly qualified to help with navigation, radio communications, medical, if it comes to that, not only for the person that we're looking for, but also for ourselves and for our canines. And we also provide search management. So it's not just throwing personnel out into an area to find somebody on, speculation of where they may go. We have a lot of reference material that we use. We do search management with maps. We are called with law enforcement, so we work closely with them. in order to get any information that we may need in order to find the person that we're looking for. So there's a lot of different components that go into these searches that we may go on. There's a lot of training that's involved. The canine team specifically, we work every single weekend, 6 to 8 hours a week to train our canines and ourselves. My team also utilizes Zoom to do a weekly training analysis to go over our training to make sure that if there's any gaps in training or anything that we need to work on, anything that went well, or some things, don't go so well. So we try to get as much information to our canine handlers as possible, and we work really hard at it.
I, I can imagine spending every weekend. That's amazing.
Pretty much every weekend. We do have trainings every weekend. Not everybody is able to make it. We obviously are volunteers. We do have personal lives, but the training is available to everybody every weekend, and we do have a requirement to our members to make a certain percentage of those trainings in order to maintain their membership status on the team.
Gotcha. Keith, you want to add anything?
So yeah, as far as what it looks like in the field, every search is going to be different. That's why we have a number of different resources within the team. The dogs are always the biggest, most popular topic. But as Marnie said, search management, when we get to a search, that's the most important thing pretty much on any search is gathering the proper information. We need all the any witnesses that have last seen the person, any history with that individual, all that information we collect and use what's called lost person behavior. It's a book basically that has statistics of everything, different types of missing people categories and where they've been found. And so for instance, children, there might be a percentage where they're found in buildings versus the woods, depending on the areas. So there's a lot of tools we use in addition to the canines. All of that information will direct where the canines go and where all the other resources go. So
let me ask you a question. Why does your team dedicate, because you're calling for like high intensity volunteering. It's just not education and just serving one time a year. Like this is a true commitment. What draws your people to this? Like just give me a sense of what the volunteer might look like.
yeah, I think the big thing that we try to stress is we are all volunteers, but we need to be professional at our job. So we're professional volunteers. We need to be, we're not just, there's a missing person post on Facebook and showing up volunteering. This is qualified resources that our team is providing. So basically, a lot of us have some kind of background. When I was younger, I grew up around the fire department, so that kind of got me involved with volunteering and helping with the community. It definitely takes a certain type of person to want to get into this because it becomes a lifestyle. It is not just a volunteer. It is, when I got into this 10 years ago, my life completely changed, and I go to work and the rest was pretty much revolves around the team and not just our training, but all the back end, just the day-to-day nonprofit running that, pretty much everything within the organization. So it definitely takes a certain dedicated person that's really wants to give back to their community. The canines, usually they have a love for dogs and working dogs, so that also drives a lot of our passion is being able to work with these dogs. Training the dogs is a very the fun part of what we do.
Yeah, I was going to add that a lot of our members are members of the first responder community, firefighters, some EMTs, paramedics. Some of them are law enforcement, military. So I think that for the most part, most of the members that we have that sort of background already. And that's kind of what draws them into this rescuing type environment where we can utilize ourselves, other skills, obviously not being a paid position, but something that we can actually utilize our skills in order to be able to help find missing loved ones in the community.
How does someone get, you say they're first responders as tends to be that community. Do you need to go through like being a firefighter or something like that? Or can someone listen to this podcast today, being like a young person, like that really speaks to me? How do they get involved?
We have a website that has some information regarding our team and some of the requirements that are involved in it. We do have certain requirements that we need to maintain regarding search information and medical and so forth. But they would contact us through our website, or if somebody gives them an email. And we have a process. We have a group of people that will contact them back, give them a lot more information. Again, because this is such an intensive process and intensive volunteering, we want to make sure that they have as much information as possible up front so that they do know what it entails, and not, a lot of times we'll get, I really like to be outdoors, or I really like to play with my dog. Not really understanding the intensity that we go through in order to make sure that we maintain our proficiency in search and rescue. So they would contact us, and then there's some processes that we go through, again, after letting them know what everything entails. We like people to come out to our team trainings just to make sure that this really is something that they want to get involved in. I think seeing the team and seeing our trainings gives a little bit more perspective as to what happens on our weekly trainings, and also being involved in those Zoom calls, because we do talk a lot about training during those calls. The Zoom calls actually started back during the pandemic when we couldn't get together on a regular basis, and we still wanted to be able to train our dogs and train us ourselves at home, even though we couldn't get together. So we did start doing the Zoom calls in order to maintain that high level, because people were still getting lost and we were still needing to go out and find them. So there is a process for anybody that wants to get involved. Again, we try to give them as much information as possible. Now, that's not to say there may be somebody out there that just wants to possibly learn more about it, or we are always welcoming people that want to come hide for the dogs, want to come just, give them something, volunteer hours. A lot of times, high school students or other people will have volunteer hours that they need to do. So it's not something that they would be doing on a regular basis, but it's something that they would be interested in learning more about, maybe for later, or just to come out and play with the dogs for a little bit.
And just wanted to add with that, you do not need to have a first responder background or anything like that. You don't actually need any experience at all. We will provide all of that, all the training. The biggest thing is you're going to be outside and you're going to be in the thick part of the woods, so it's not always clean and pretty, but but we will give you all the resources that you need to learn that with the navigation and GPS, those skills. We can teach any volunteer that. As Marty said, it doesn't have to be a member of the team to volunteer with the team. We need people to come out and hide. That is no requirement. You can show up once and do it once, or be a regular hider for the dogs. It's super important for the dogs to have fresh new people coming out and hiding for them. It's a lot of fun playing with the dogs. And we also have positions where you don't have to be a deployable member, but maybe if somebody just wants to help with grant writing or funding, fundraisers, PR events, things like that, we have a spot for mostly anybody that's willing to volunteer their time.
That's awesome. But my next question, as I thought of this after you spoke about it. When we're talking about thinking, yes, that's probably the exciting part of what you do. How do you, like you talked about, one was more scent trained and one was more human remains trained. How do you know which dog is good with what?
A lot of times, depending on the age of the dog when they start, we may decide to train a specific dog depending on the need of the team. Currently, right now, we only have a one scent specific trailing dog and two cadaver dogs that are trained and certified and deployable with the team. So, in order to maintain, have dogs that are available for the searches that we go on, we might kind of gear one way or another for the dog's training. That being said, a bloodhound, for instance, is a hound and a trailing dog genetically, so we wouldn't probably make them an air scent dog for live find or cadaver. It's just the way that they're made up. They wouldn't be good at doing something different. Any of your hound breeds, certain breeds that do come in are genetically predisposed to one or the other. There's also sometimes a preference. I've been working dogs, like I said, for 23 years. I've been doing trailing dogs for that almost that entire time. So my predisposition for dogs is to train them to do scent specific trailing. A few years ago, I decided that I wanted to focus some of my training on cadaver work, and I got a dog specifically for that. So it really depends. It could be handler preference. It could be what the dog is predisposed to. It could be things that we see in the dogs when we first evaluate them or work with them a little bit to see what they may like to do. They may be sniffing the ground a lot more. They may be naturally trailing, and we might want to train them for that. Or they may kind of look to the air where the scent is coming in the air, and they may be more uh, better suited to be an air scent dog rather than a trailing dog. And with cadaver, again, that's an air scent discipline. So they are searching areas for scent that's going to be wafting through the air. And that's just how they're trained to find the deceased person that we're looking for. Sometimes it's a handler preference. So if somebody may not be able to search, big areas, or they may not be the greatest at navigation or something to that effect, then they might want to decide to do a different discipline. That's not normally the way that goes, but sometimes there's just a handler preference as to what they want their dogs to do.
Keith, you want to add?
Yeah, and as far as the dogs, if somebody has a dog and they're looking to volunteer, we can take dogs all these dogs are our pets first, so they're all our dogs. When I started, I got my first puppy, and then I got into search and rescue after I got him. So they can do that. We do like to stress that this is a lot of work, just like all the training that we do. It's very specific training for the dog. So a lot of our members do come with their basically their pet first, and then training for this. We do an evaluation process that will tell us if this dog is going to be worth putting the time into, or if they need to work on some other training before starting it. It's about a 2-year process, depending on the age of the dog and the handler's experience. So ideally, and this is, as I said, I started with a pet first. I got another dog. The breed line, it just wasn't as genetically bred for this type of work. So my third one, I specifically sought out a working line lab that I have now. So that's the biggest thing. The dogs need to be very specific. Most dogs can be trained for this, but to be really good at this job, they need to be genetically bred to be able to work and be able to maintain the level of proficiency that we require on the team.
Talking about search management and then the canines and their handlers actually out in the field, where do you have most people resources, in the management of it or actually in the field, or is it kind of a mix?
I would say it's a little bit of a mix. Marnie and I are both the search managers as well. So right now we have a lot of new members, and it takes quite a few years to get all this level of training. So we do have a mix of canine handlers. Every canine handler, any member on the team is what we call ground person. So just because we're canine handlers doesn't mean we're not going to go out and grid search and do things like that. So it is a very mixed, everybody kind of has a multi roles within the team because every search is different. We may need different resources in certain areas. So having members qualified to do search management, or at least be able to run the command center while sending out tasks and debriefing people. Most of the members are capable of being able to jump back and forth and do a little bit of everything.
From all your experience, a story of impact, something that you've seen, like from being called out to the person being found, or what that looked like, that you can share, or both of you share an experience?
I mean, to go back into the archives of 23 years. So sorry, my dogs are going crazy right now. It's hard to kind of pick the most impactful thing that we could have done. My biggest memory and impactful to the family was somebody that was looking for their father for a week, and he just couldn't get somebody to come out and look for his dad, who was they just thought that he had just walked off and he was angry and he would come back. And we searched quite a few hours that day. And then one of the officers on the search, we were just about ready to pack up, and he said, "You know what? We haven't searched this one little area behind the house." And I got my other dog out of the car, and he had searched for, I think, maybe 10 minutes and was able to find his father, not far from where the house was that he had walked away from. So in a sense, we were able to bring closure to the family because we were able to find him for the family. However, it it was a little bit of a wake up call as to the situations that some families find themselves in, is that my loved one is missing and I can't get anybody to help them. It was very sad. The son kind of came up to me and wanted to know, what the situation was and where his father was. And I just had to kind of um, tell him to go to law enforcement and ask them. It was a very sad situation, but the whole situation was just weird to me because it was just, we haven't searched this one area that was right next to the house. So that kind of rolls into everything that we've talked about: the search management, working with law enforcement, working with the right personnel in order to get the information there, getting the correct dogs for the work that we're doing, and making sure that we can even, put the personnel out into the field. It was highly impactful to me. It was, I think, probably I don't remember which find it was for this particular dog, but it was definitely something that will stick with me for the rest of my career in search and rescue. It was just something that, um, like an afterthought kind of thing. But this poor man was just trying to find somebody to help find his dad. And it was just me. I was just out there with law enforcement trying to be able to help. So
Thank you. Keith, you have a story?
Yeah. So first off, most the searches that we are on, I mean, we have a lot of searches, and not always the person isn't always found in the search area that we're at. Sometimes they end up being 2 states over. So there's a lot of ups and downs with putting a lot of effort into a search. And
Wow.
as long as they're found, we are happy. And to see the families just being thrilled beyond belief, even though they're found 2 states over because they got a ride somewhere, the thanks that we get from the families, all the effort that they see is very rewarding. The one particular search we were on, I this is quite a few years ago. But I deployed my trailing dog. There had already been 2 other dogs that had tried searching from the house and went a certain direction. Everything we do, we always double, triple efforts to make sure we're covering the areas. So this was a missing elderly man with a dementia. He had been missing for about 9 hours. It's 3 o'clock in the morning at this point, and he had his 13-year-old dog with him. So we were able to track into a wooded area beyond his house and finally tracked to him. We made a verbal contact. He was in the most thick mess of woods that you've ever been in. It was just from the time from when we realized where he was to get to him, it was climbing over rocks and boulders, and he had gotten stuck in between a rock and a log, and him and the dog were basically stuck there. The dog was very old and had a difficult time walking. Luckily, he was in good shapes and good spirit, and the dog was actually, we needed to carry the dog out because he was a little tired from being out there for so long. But that was kind of a good happy ending, and we were able to find the missing gentleman and the dog. My dog Nakoma was thrilled to death to find another dog out there, and it was very neat to see that. I mean, they were very happy. They were obviously very happy to see us as well. That was probably our biggest, most memorable.
Most memorable. Why do you volunteer? Why do either of you why is this your passion? Keith, we'll start with you.
Like I said, I grew up, my father was a firefighter, so I kind of grew up in the firefighting community. I've always been in that. I did dive rescue for a little while. So it's kind of always been in that. I think my parents just kind of bred into me as a giving back to the community and volunteering. Right now, I have a huge passion for the dogs and the dog training and working the dogs. Being able to combine the animals and have these amazing dogs, working with them every day is what keeps me going. It's a lot of work. It's stressful at times, but you got a best friend there to pet and play with, and it is very fun working with the dogs. And to be able to take that and to help somebody else using that tool and all the tools that we have, the training we have, it's very rewarding. But a lot of it is just the process getting there. Like I said, working with the dogs is what really kind of keeps me going.
Marnie, why do you volunteer?
I've never been personally involved with firefighting or first responder situations. However, I've always known people that have. So throughout my life, I've always dated people that were in the fire service, or my husband is a ski patrol, used to be a ski patroller. And I wanted to get involved somehow when we first got together, and we had a puppy, and one of his friends from ski patrol said, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool if you could train your dog for search and rescue?" I had absolutely no idea what was involved in it. I didn't know that I was going to be doing this 23 years later, and most likely many years to come. I didn't know that I was going to get as involved as I did. I fell in love with the intricacies of search and rescue, training the dogs, what it entails, all of the people that you meet, the community that's, the search and rescue community in itself is very large, and yet somewhat small at the same time. But the family that I have right now are all either my team or people that I've met along the way that were search and rescue people and dog trainers. And it's just something that I'm very passionate about. I had no idea when I started on the off comment of, "Hey, I know this, search and rescue person in New York. Wouldn't it be cool?" To, this is something that I believe in and that I'm very passionate about, and that I work very, very hard to be able to, um, uh, train my dogs and train myself and my team to be able to do this professionally, and, on a volunteer basis, but we do train very hard to do that.
Okay. with those years of experience and that passion, can you share a time that it didn't go as planned? It could be a blooper. It went wrong. It just didn't go as planned. What did you learn?
This story, this particular search we went on, somebody had last been seen at her house, and we had searched for her for quite a long time, and all of the dogs didn't go, and none of the trailing dogs went anywhere. We were all talking to each other. None of the, our dog didn't go. Where did your dog go? Nowhere. We went nowhere. We had no information. We tried to search for this person, and we had no leads, nothing. And we figured that she either got into a car, or she was still in the house somehow. And we were told that the house had been searched, by law enforcement, and we left. We had no more information. It was kind of, at that point in time, with no proper leads or no direction of travel from the dogs, it's kind of like at that point they're in the rest of the world, and without any new information, we can't really do anything. And it came to find out the next day that she was still in the house. She was hiding in the closet under a lot of blankets and sleeping bags. And when the family was going to stay over because she was still missing and they wanted to support her husband, he went into the closet to take some stuff out of the closet, and she was still in the closet. So what we learned from that was that we need to search the house ourselves, and then we need to search it again and make sure that we go into every nook and cranny. After that search, I did specifically set up trainings to kind of mimic that scenario of somebody that lives in the house and then they go into a closet to hide. Will our dogs be able to see if, to indicate that there's a person in the house somewhere? So it was funny in a sense. She really did have some problems that she was dealing with, but it was, we were kind of all like, well, the dogs aren't going anywhere. We have no other information. Like, what are we going to do with that? The only thing we could think of is she got picked up or she was still in the house, and it turned out she was still in the house. So I tell that story all the time. And again, I set up scenarios because of it, because I was like, well, what would the dog do if their scent was everywhere in this house and they just needed, would the dogs be able to indicate that, hey, open the door and there's somebody in here? But it was just a very interesting scenario.
With those trainings that you've had, do the dogs, are they able to pick up the scent in the house situation?
They are. It's an interesting scenario because you do need to open the doors. So the thing about having that much scent saturated in the air in the house, is that they may narrow it down to the floor that they're on, or they may narrow it down to a hallway or a room, but you do need to open the doors and make sure that you are searching every single crack and crevice. We've had stories of children that have been hiding under mattresses in the basement. Kids will play hide and seek and their parents just can't find them. And then they get scared because somebody's looking for them and they don't know who it is. So then they hunker down a little bit further. So it's definitely imperative to make sure that you search every nook and cranny in the house.
All right, Keith, what's your experience?
Yeah. Trying to think of what comes to mind. We have a lot of those stories, like Marnie explained, where the person, we may have, mostly kids, they may have just been hiding, and then they get scared because they see all this stuff happening. And luckily, it's always a good outcome because they're still just in or around the house hiding. So it's not funny, but it's a good, happy, weird search for those to happen. But I guess the only thing I can think of is not really thing went too wrong, but my second dog that I got for this, I put a lot of training into her, and it just wasn't working out. And kept trying. The good positive that came of that is I had to learn a lot. So I don't regret it 1 minute because we spent a lot of time training. She didn't work out. But I went out and I gathered more information. I had to problem solve, and it really made me a better handler and trainer. Um, from having to work through the problems I was having with that dog. And it worked out. I got a third dog and couldn't be happier. And
That's awesome. All right, Keith and Marnie, we are at the end of our conversation, and I'm going to give you the mic. I want you to maybe talk about something that I didn't ask, or you thought of afterwards that you think our audience would like to know, or you've already talked about how people can get involved, but maybe someone wants to be a hide to get found. Just share whatever you want. Just love on your organization.
I'm gonna let Keith go first.
So PaWSAR.org, PaWSAR.org is our web. We have lots of information on there for both people that are interested in volunteering, but also for law enforcement or fire departments, other agencies that might want to get in contact with us. We're always open to do joint trainings, come out, do demos, networking. We want as many people to know about the services we provide. One thing that I don't think we touched on, I just wanted to make it clear too, is that we only respond to law enforcement, the requests by law enforcement. So any missing person, we consider a criminal case until they're found and proven otherwise. So we cannot dispatch by a family calling us or anything like that. It has to be directly through the police or the fire department, whoever's in charge of that search. But like I said, with the fire departments, if anybody wants to learn more about the resources that we can provide, we're not coming in to take over the search or anything. We are just bringing in additional resources for that situation. Absolutely love PaWSAR. I couldn't be more proud to be a member of PaWSAR and on this team. We have a lot of great new people, a lot of young people. So I'm really excited about the future for PaWSAR. And anybody that wants to volunteer, we can find a spot. Come out and hide, just come out and meet us and then decide. It is a commitment. So we do understand that. And we're happy to share with what we do with anybody that's interested.
Thank you. Marnie?
Keith reminded me of something as he was talking about how awesome our organization is, but we do also spend a lot of time doing demos and talking and PR events for different organizations in the area that we serve, to get the information out there and to get our organization our availability to help. So we've been doing a lot of work lately in the autistic community, with some state police does sunny day camps for autistic kids and disabled kids, to give them more information on how to, if your child does get lost, what to do in that situation, what to do in the situation if you're out in public and something should happen to your child. Just give them, help them understand, what is available to them and what resources are available to them. We've done a lot of work with the Boy Scouts this year as well, getting the message of volunteerism out to the groups in the areas, to let them know that that's available to them when they get a little bit older and might want to volunteer when they get out of school or a little bit older, in the community for that. It's really important, like Keith said, we'll do, to network with different agencies out there, different community organizations, so that they know that we're available. A lot of times we hear, I didn't even know there was search and rescue in the area, or I didn't know that this was available to us. And how do we even find you? So if somebody is lost, in my opinion, if somebody is lost, a child, a loved one, it is an emergency, to call 911 as soon as you can. We have no problem dispatching and then turning around and coming home immediately. We want to make sure that the family member is found. We don't really care how it's found. We work with other teams in the area to make sure that we get as many qualified professionals out there to find them. So it's really important that if somebody is missing in your family, to call 911 immediately and explain the situation. And to also say, I know that there may be search and rescue groups in the area, and to let them know that, please, I want help finding my loved one. So I think that's really important, because a lot of people just don't know that we're available to them. And we do not charge for our services. So again, we'll turn around in 5 minutes. We'll get in the car and be, half an hour out, and we'll get the stand down to go back home. And we are more than happy for that, as long as the person is found.
That's awesome. Well, we are at the end of the conversation, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did awesome. I appreciate you sharing. I know when I first heard about what you did, I'm like, oh, they have to come on. I know I have listeners who would find value in the type of work that you do. So I thank you for the work that you do. It's good to there are people who are dedicated and are trained to come in our hour of need and to find the loved one. So, to my listeners, I know you found value in today's conversation. So if you would go to wherever and rate and review this episode, it really does help other people hear about the impactful work volunteers are doing and how together we are restoring the fabric of our society. So thank you, and I'll see you next time on The Art of Volunteering. Have a great day.